Welcome to Bali High. For some time now, the government here has pushed for industry at every turn, whether the locals liked it or not. But today, the islanders are taking matters into their own hands. They've secured a prime plot of land just behind the luxury beach resort, and we're about to build something sweet. Literally. We're setting up a sugarcane mill and a farm to keep it running. It's a bold move for the laid-back island, but we're here to make it happen. So let's dive in and get to work. So we had some great ideas in the comment sections on the last video. Sam here suggested that we put a pineapple farm on a clear space nearby. Really liked that idea. Now, not gonna lie, I had really no idea what a pineapple plant looked like, so I had to go Google that. And I think with the vegetation options that we have, it was really going to be difficult to try and get something that kind of resembled that type of plant. Now in Fiji, in which this island is really based on, we have a pretty big development in terms of a sugarcane mill, and I thought that would make a really nice industrial complex. The real life one that I'm basing the inspiration on is significantly bigger than this one. This one's really going to be quite compact, and the farm is going to be pretty compact as well. We still obviously have the same constraints as usual. This is a really small island, and there's not a huge amount of build space, so we do have to be careful with what we're doing in terms of scale. But I think we'll be able to get a nice mix of industry, a little bit of agriculture, which we haven't done in the island before, and then we'll be able to sort of build up the natural environment around it. Now you may have seen me join up some of the islands and essentially create something of a land bridge. I will have to revisit this. That had some unforeseen consequences, so to speak, for the island, so we'll definitely be coming back and making a few adjustments on that one. But I want to clear off the island and sort of got the road infrastructure in place. Really, I wanted to get the big industry part of it done first. So using some of StarQ's plopper walls, I'm just going to create a custom complex here. I'm going to use some of the ore assets simply because they come with these conveyor belts, built into the mesh, and they look really good. You can combine a few of them, use some of the storage assets from the agriculture packs, I think, and stick a couple of warehouses on it, and you're pretty much good to go. Now I did think of keeping it there, but it was just too close to the resort, and it looked a little bit too imposing. I think if you were going on holiday there, you maybe wouldn't be too happy with a big noisy, dirty industrial facility just looming over the trees. So I landed on this spot just down the road. I think it's going to be sufficiently away from the tourist area, and it's going to give us a little bit of space actually to build out maybe a little bit extra agriculture down here as well. And although it's not always necessary, it's always pretty cool when you've got a big building like this, a signature building, whether it's an in-game one, vanilla, or you're building it yourself, and give it a bit of a waterside setting. It always looks pretty nice. In terms of the main frames for the agriculture, very straightforward. I'm just going to draw out rectangles. These are very similar to the fields found in the real life one, and I wanted it to reflect that in the build as well. So the tool that I'm going to be drawing these out with is Ogendo's dirt paths. They're a perfect fit for this build, and they're not going to be functional. These ones, ultimately, I could make them functional, draw some invisible paths, but there's no destination, our sims aren't going to go anywhere, unless there's something on the other side to actually visit. So we'll leave them non-functional, but we are going to add a bit of life here, and we're going to be adding some residential stuff to the build, and that will bring the cars in, and it'll get some people walking about as well. So once the frames are in place, we can think about filling it up. Now, of course, we're going to be making sugarcane here. We don't have a sugarcane plant, so what I decided to go on was to use some of the Sylvester plants, or Sylvester palms I should say rather. We're going to be using some of the medium-sized ones, and we're going to be sinking these into the ground a few meters. Now I am conscious that they're going to be kind of similar to what we have on the main canopies, and I definitely wanted to have a differentiation, so I'm purposely using smaller ones, purposely putting them into the ground, and then purposely putting them in a line so they look like they've been part of an agriculture build. I wanted to break it up a little bit as well, so I decided to use another crop here, and there I'm just going to be using the apple trees. I recolored part of it so we can get some more yellow, and really I wanted to sort of lemon trees, but it kind of looked like it recolored maybe a bit too much to look like actual lemon sitting there, but I like the change of colour, so I'm going to keep it. So sugarcane itself is quite a tall grass. It's really dense if you have a look and see how it's sort of growing, and it tends to be pretty tall as well. It can grow up to 6 meters. So I think from a sizing point of view, I think we've pretty much got it spot on there. I did mention earlier that we might have some unintended consequences by making that land bridge earlier, and if we swing round to the main resort, you can see we have managed to actually flood the main bay here. Not gonna lie, did have a bit of a panic there. I thought we might end up with quite a lot of destroyed stuff, so it was time for some immediate remedial action. So what we need to do is basically swing back over and just get rid of that land bridge. We'll put a proper bridge in there in place, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get the flow of the water going again properly, not build up in the bay. Now you're going to see as soon as we give the water the opportunity to flow through, it really did come rushing through here, and I was quite surprised about that. You know, given that we're out in the middle of nowhere and really we're in the middle of the sea, I didn't think that there would be quite such a strong current on this map, but there we go. I did jump into dev mode and just bump up the speed of the water. We can bump it up to 64 times, and eventually, before not too long, it did manage to clear itself, and yeah, we're okay, we're good to go, panic over. So once I knew that the water was looking okay, I kind of swung back over, and I did want to put a bit of a bridge in, and I'm going to use the little bridge that's actually built in vanilla. And this is, I always call this one the Beetlejuice bridge. It's like the bridge from the beginning of Beetlejuice, right? Isn't it? Little wooden bridge. It's pretty cute. I don't know if it belongs in the Pacific Islands right enough, but I'm going to keep it in anyway. I like it. As some of you guys might have seen on the community post here on YouTube, that the channel hit 1 million views, and it also hit 10,000 subscribers on the same day. It's really cool to hit these milestones, and obviously couldn't have done it without you guys. So I just wanted to say thanks for tuning into the videos every week. It means the world to me, and I really do appreciate it. I always try and take my time and try and explain things as I'm going along, and really just try and give you guys a bit of extra value, you know, when you're watching me create this stuff, and hopefully you can grab a bit of inspiration and maybe use it in your own builds. If you're interested in getting an early sneak peek in any of the projects that I'm working on, or you want to take a closer look at some of the projects and you want to get hold of the game saves, then all of this stuff is made available on Patreon. YouTube members have got the same benefits. I do share the same stuff on the Discord for YouTube members as well. Just bear in mind, the only build that I'm not able to share at the moment is the Bali High one, but everything else I update regularly on the appropriate platform. A huge thank you goes to these guys, absolute legends on Patreon and YouTube that are supporting the channel currently. Massively appreciated as always. We've got a few new members here who will be getting their name somewhere in Cape Lomond. I don't know where yet, but you will be going in there. Bear with me and I'll try and get you guys in the next episode. So we've just got a few of the fields left here to finish off, and I'm just going to really just put that in fast forward. We don't need to see all of that again. But that's pretty much the main agricultural part of it done. You know, all the fields are filled in. And obviously, you know, if you've seen the previous videos, you know we're going to be making that look an awful lot better. So the first thing I wanted to do was really just bring the forest canopy up to the road. A couple of reasons for that. One, it gives us some nice shadows. Two, it kind of fills a gap in terms of breaking up the grass. And three, it means that we're actually bringing down the surface that we need to decal and sort of muddy up, so to speak, you know, to an absolute minimum as well. So it kind of saves a little bit of time as we add the detail into the actual farm build itself. And keeping it all consistent is going to be the same tree palette that we're going to be using here again. Big Sylvester palms, apples, oaks, and then the occasional very small palm around some of the edges. But the oaks really do well, adding some overgrown look here, and they work really well. I should probably add a few more to the edges around the other parts of the map, in fact. After planting some of the trees around the water, I decided they looked a little bit too big, so we're going to be using the tree brush tool, and I'm going to use the age brush tool, I think that's what it's called, and we're just going to make them younger. And by making them younger, we make them smaller. Here and there, we'll just want to add some of the tall ones, just to add a wee bit of contrast. And I think that's looking quite beautiful, really, isn't it? Looking pretty nice so far. We're not nearly finished, but it's not a bad start. So I've banged on about the dirty road mods in pretty much every video since it came out. This one's not going to be any different. It just does an awful lot of the hard work for you, doesn't it? So I'm going to use it extensively, really. Again, same idea, using net lanes, and then we just use the decals that go with it, and we just get nice smooth edges everywhere, really. We will be pairing it up with some other dirt decals around the edges. We'll get a really nice effect. Around the shore, I did try and make a full-size beach, you know, using surfaces because of the surface that came with the map, and you can kind of see the line, you know, running along there from left to right. Didn't look right. It looked odd. I had a big sort of unnatural line, and I couldn't get it working really the way I wanted it looking. So what I decided to do was, rather than use the surfaces, I just decided to use the decals only. Now, in fairness, we have to put down an absolute ton of them, but we got a pretty nice effect by the time we got it finished off. So here I'm just using a combination of the medium ones and the light ones together, And you will see me go around that line that's sort of artificially there, that solid line, and I'm just going to break it up with some of the light ones as well. It's not perfect, there's still a little bit of an unnatural line, but for most angles you can't see it. Whatever effect the water gives, it's kind of invisible apart from directly top down. Just to break things up a little bit and to help draw the eye, I added a few small decals here from the beach pack. Just going to be adding some seashells, and we're going to be adding some seaweed as well, and it should look kind of nice. As I say, not major detailing, but it just breaks things up a little bit. Now, as we swing back over to the kind of farm area, I am going to be using a ton more decals. We'll be using static noises here. We're going to be using plenty of the dirt ones, and we'll just kind of pick and choose as in where we want them. The nice thing about most of these decals is that they will slot underneath the dirty roads, so it means that you're able to get some really nice effects on the side of the roads, and you can actually vary it up quite a bit. You don't necessarily have to use different decals, you can use the same one, just change the angles, pull it in or out and hide a little bit more or show a little bit more, from under the road, and you can get some really nice varied effects. Looks sweet. So as I said, if you want to change it up, then you can. There are a number of decals there to use, but so the advice I would give you is if you are going to be using different decals, try and go for a natural look here. You don't want to have something that looks, too jarring or too out of place, and really I'm just kind of going for a natural look here. Now I reckon that main highway might be worth having a look at again. I did previously use surfaces around the island. It worked quite well, it did look the part, and I might add the surface back onto that road. That said, I might just replace it and use one of the new decals of Netlands potentially instead. So after a quick adjustment of the light, we can kind of have a quick survey of the first part of the build. I think that's looking pretty decent, don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely happy with that as a start. So let's just get the final finishing touches done on this now. Time to get the kind of centrepiece of the build in place, and obviously we spent a wee bit of time right at the beginning of the episode getting most of the non-functional stuff in, along with some warehousing. Now I just want to extend that out and really get some life in here and make sure that we're going to have some cars coming in and we're going to have some people walking about as well. So it's really just time to plop down a couple of extra industrial assets. I think I'm using manufacturing ones here, and there's always demand for manufacturing assets in the game, regardless of the map really. But I think we've got a nice little complex there. It's got a cool little location. We've even made a little bay for it as well. So very first thing I wanted to do in terms of the detailing that we're going to do around it is to use static noises decals again, and this one is just going to create a bit of a border around the main industrial park. The nice thing, as you can see, is it kind of comes with a border of its own. On one side we've got that green edge, I guess is what you call it, and that's really just going to give us an outline for any of the concrete areas here. I have a plan for across the road, but we'll get to that just shortly. As you see, this one's just kind of semi-transparent on the roads, so I decided to take that out, and we'll come back and we'll do something else for the roads. To kind of complete the area, so to speak, I'm just going to use some basic, vanilla surfaces here, a couple of little different colours so we get some different, slight different effects on the ground, and we'll be adding layers to that as we go along. So when I was checking out the real life one on Google Maps, they had a really big long line of transport trucks, and they were looking like they were all lined up to grab some of the materials that were being produced in the facility. There was lines and lines of what looked like bales of sugarcane, and when I kind of had a quick search on Google Maps, or Google itself rather, I wanted to try and see what the trucks looked like, and I wanted to kind of get the colours for the materials as well. So really it was just a dark bale, and there was lines and lines of them, so that's what I decided to do here. Most of the transporting vehicles I could find anyway on Google were white, so I decided to create a fleet of these as well, and they can line up and they can either be dropping off the material or picking it up. You make your mind up. Again, we're going to use plenty of different decals, and I want to kind of get this side a little bit dirtier, and I definitely want to get that main facility all dirtied up as well. And again, just like the real life one, it's really quite dark and quite grimy. So I was having a little bit of an issue there getting the decals done, so on the sloped area where the decals don't too good, I decided to swap back over and do the nettling, and again we'll get them blended in nicely as well. Again, I want to get that kind of concrete look, and again, much like the main facility, I want it looking like it's got additional dirt over there as well. You can kind of imagine going around with a power washer and a lot of this stuff would wash away, and that's the kind of look I'm going for. Now, the little section at the bottom there just looked a little bit odd. I couldn't quite get the different surfaces and all the rest of it blended in together, so I decided just to use some of Broman's dirt decals, and we'll just stick them, they'll go right on top of everything, and they can definitely hide a little bit of jank there that was left by the combination of decals and surfaces that I used. So I reckon there's a bit of work to be done in terms of just making this a little bit worn, and again, Broman's transparent, semi-transparent decals for the dirt work perfectly, and I've been using them an awful lot actually, and they always look pretty good. So what we need to do then is we'll be using some of Cities decals as well on the roofs. We're going to be using them on the walls as well, and we'll get a nice weathered, worn look when we're done here. Definitely wanted to add a little bit more character. I'm going to add some more bales, I'm going to add some more vehicles, and other than that pretty much kind of wraps up what's left for this part of the build. There's not really too much to it, to be honest with you. So just like the first chapter, I'm going to finish up with a super short detailing time lapse, and I'll catch up with you for the next section in just a minute. I'm going to kick things off with a brand new addition for the island. Harbour Master Jay was watching, and he suggested it might be possible to knock up a forestry barge. And that's exactly what he's done. Have a look at this. It's so clever, and it's a really nice addition to this part of the island as well. It's a perfect fit. So Jay was saying that they actually use these barges on some smaller islands, I guess, in the South Pacific, and not just for forestry, but as general transportation. I really like it, and we are just crying out for some more of this kind of stuff on Cities Skylines too, aren't we? Cheers for that one, Jay. Super cool. Appreciate it, mate. And so we're on to the final part of the build. So the reason why I wanted to do sugarcane, apart from, I thought that the vegetation might fit in pretty well and I could find some decent inspo on Google Maps, was that it's been a critical part of Fiji's agricultural and economic landscape for more than a century. It's been growing there since the late 1800s. So specifically for Fiji, it's centred around the western and the central regions of the islands, and particularly in places like Latoko, Ba and Rarawai. The Rarawai sugar mill, in fact, is the one I've been using for inspiration. So typically the sugarcane farming is typically done on large plantations, but smallholder farmers also contribute significantly to the supply. And that's kind of what I've introduced here. I want to be introducing kind of smallholders, but they're actually running the show with the mill as well. And I like to think that it gives them something to push back against the big mine industry to the south or the north. I'm not sure which way it is, to be honest now, and also the big forestry industry as well. So the people here in Bali High are somewhat taking things back into their own hands. Now, although we don't have a huge amount of land to build on here, and we do need to be careful in terms of what we're doing, I do think we have scope to add a bit more agriculture, and I think you would kind of expect to see it, wouldn't you, in these kind of islands. Now a bit further down where the road ends, the new one that we've put in, we definitely have a decent bit of space, and I think potentially we've maybe got a bit of space for a secondary town or maybe a village. Let me know what you think, but I think that might be a good option, and we can come up with a few ideas to make things a little bit more interesting over on that side. I think as we go around the island, on the far side that we've not developed yet, we are definitely going to have a challenge in terms of fitting really any type of development. We're going to have to think on our feet really with that one, but that's the fun of playing in these little tiny maps. We can get really creative and come up with some real fun solutions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this last of the detailing finished off. We'll get all the vegetation done. There'll be a bit of detailing work to be done on our secondary little farm here as well. We want to get all of the dirt and all of the flooring and the groundwork done, and we'll get the recolouring stuff as well. But everything's going to come into shape now, which is kind of nice. It's that time in the video where we can take a moment and have a proper look at what we've done. I think although we're using a lot of the same vegetation, being able to just box it off and put it in the lines, it does make that differentiation between the surrounding vegetation, I think. And obviously mixing it up with different densities and different colours is pretty necessary to kind of get away with that. Like if anything that needs to be adjusted, it's maybe that line that I can see along the beach, within the water. Kind of annoying me slightly, so I think I need to go back there and kind of soften the whole thing up again. We ended up with a nice basic little scene with the trucks getting loaded up with the materials. I think that's a nice little touch, and I reckon again all the decal work and all the dirt that we added on obviously removes the plain vanilla look on these things. I think maybe one thing that's underutilized here is the little coves, the little beaches that we have. I think little fishing scenes would be really good. I think they'd be a great fit. Obviously we don't really have the assets, but I think we can probably figure something out, I reckon. Even if it's just something on a really small scale. So I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I certainly enjoyed making it. Plenty more to come on this one. As I said earlier on, links are in the description if you guys want to support on Patreon. Have a good week. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.